Hello and welcome. I'm Jenny Hall. Thanks for joining me for another card making tutorial. This week is Technique Week on my YouTube channel and on my blog, so I want to share with you a different style video for a special stamp set. So I'm going to be stamping with the Picked For You stamp set, and this is a couple of different combinations at once. So I'm doing a different styled video to help me better describe the process as I go along. Picked For You is a multi-step stamp or a layering stamp, and it has 1, 2, 3 layers to the one image of an apple. And it is a distinctive stamp as well. And the distinctive stamp means that it is created a little differently, kind of like how a television set is made up of teeny tiny millions of dots. Well, these stamps are made up of little clusters of spots that help to create a layered image that looks a little bit more realistic. So I wanted to show you exactly how I have come up with the best way to use this particular stamp set. As my inspiration, I have a beautiful little apple here, and this is a Honeycrisp apple that is a favorite of my family's in the United States. This is a very popular apple, and I'm looking at the color tones, and I see that there definitely is not one particular color. I see yellows, greens, a couple of different hues of red, a little pink. There's lots of different colors in an apple. And being as we are stamping an apple, then I'm using this as my inspiration. Pardon me. So the color combination that I think I'm going to feel the most comfortable with is Poppy Parade for my first image, Flirty Flamingo for my second image, and Cherry Cobbler ink for my third. And we will see this progress as we go along. I'm going to use the Stamparatus because it will be easier for me to be able to line up the stamps. So there are a couple of different hallmarks in this stamp set, and one of them is that they all have a flat edge on the top with a V-cut, so that we know where to place the top of the image. And that would be that the apple is going to be in the same direction. There is also, and I'll put it up against the white paper here, there is also a numbering system that tells us which one of the images goes in what progression. So this is image number 1. This is number 2, and this is number 3. And then number 4 is the apple, the little stem, and we're going to use soft suede for that one. And this is a lovely stamp set. This is not just a teacher stamp set. Although there is a wonderful teacher sentiment here. And here's another one that's just a clever, you are terrific to the core. Thanks to you for all that you do. I can think of a couple of bus drivers that would really like that. Many thanks, and you're the best. So I'm going to stamp with this one that says, I couldn't have picked a better friend. That will be the sentiment for this particular project. So as I was doing a little play around to try this set out first, and I have not officially made a card from it, I knew this was something that is not going to just be a very quick, easy project to complete. What is going to result is a beautiful card that I hope that you're going to be having a lot of fun when you create it. And I've kind of got a little few tips that I hope will help you. My first tip is to use watercolor paper. There is a non-forgiving look whenever you use a piece of regular Whisper White cardstock. You can't move anything around. The colors won't blend in together unless you use like an ombre technique. So we're going to try this today and use watercolor paper to see if that helps along the process. I'm thinking that it will. So this is my first trial, and I wanted to bring up the yellow tones that this apple has. So I used So Saffron, but it took up too much of an area. I just wanted hints of So Saffron. So I'm going to use this kind of like, this was my test pattern, and I learned from that one. Okay, so let's get started. I have my little piece of watercolor paper, and it's rough on this side and smooth on this side. So I will be stamping on the smooth side. I'm going to put this up against the side here. I could put it up, we'll put it up in the corner because that's going to help me know where to keep my paper positioned. And I'll find stamp number 1, which is here at the top. So knowing which direction I'm going to place my stamp, I'll be able to see that I want to put it with that V cut facing this direction, which is north for me. Make sure that my paper is secured down. I'm leaving the soft pad in because this is a photopolymer stamp and I need that extra cushion to raise it up. Putting the stamp set on this side, I have found, definitely helps this door to have enough level space. It's just about the right size. Isn't that great? So I'm going to go with image number 1, and the image number 1 is going to be Poppy Parade. On my sample, my test run, that was the yellow, and there's too much yellow here. So I want there to be some nice deep tones of red. So what I'll do is I'll add, now this distinctive type stamp is one that we need to be careful to make sure that we get enough ink on the stamp. And I will just give it a nice push here. And I see some beautiful tones. Now I have my aqua painter filled with tap water here, and I'm going to mess around just the outside of where those areas are. And as we go, you'll see that this is going to be a very big assist on trying to make sure that the images are lined up. As we go, you'll see that it's not as easy to get this stamp set perfectly lined up. And that is the part that I like to try to be as easy on myself as I possibly can, because I know that I'm not going to get this perfect. I'm not sure I know anybody that will get this perfect. But let's find the way that works the best with the least resistance. All right, so number 1 is already finished. I cleaned it with my Simply Chamois, and find number 2. And number 2, as I found on my test run, is the one that has the outside colors. No, it's not. It's the one that has the highlight area in the middle. So I wanted to change over to from Poppy Parade to Flirty Flamingo, because as you hold an object in the light, the part that catches the light is going to be a lighter shade. So Flirty Flamingo will help me get that lighter tone. And keeping in mind that it was wet, but now it's dry because I just gave it a little bit of a mix around. And I'm going to line up those outside lines with what I have first in the first stamp. And there's also the place where the stem goes. that's another way to line it up. And if it's not perfect, it's okay, because I've muddled it up with some watercolor, created the watercolor look, and that's going to help this appear more forgiving. This is why I'm doing this style of video, because I really want to help you be able to have success with this stamp set. So I want there to be lots of ink on this portion. And as we close the door, then we see some highlights, but it's not really enough. Let me try it again. And I see some more. I see some more highlights coming in here. I know it's not a very big areaed stamp. It's the one here that's this, almost looks a little bit like a fish hook or a shepherd's crook. So I'm gonna make sure I add lots of this Flirty Flamingo. And then the aqua painter will help me to fill in anywhere that it didn't meet exactly where I layered it up. This is why I think that using the aqua painter is especially forgiving. If we were doing this on regular Whisper White cardstock, then we would not be able to have that flexibility of moving around the color. So as it is, it's a really pretty stamp set. It just needs some practice. Okay, that was number 2. So now I'll find number 3, which is here. This is going to be my darkest shade because it is around the outside contours of the apple. And I know that I'm going to do the flat V to the north. I'm going to find the areas where it needs to be and try to stay within it, lining it up. Now this stamp is like a odd shape, so if you push these pieces together, it's going to flip back open. Getting it in just the right place, but I know that this will be a forgiving technique because we're using the watercolor process. Okay, this is going to be our darkest ink color, which is Cherry Cobbler. And the distinctive area really needs, it needs a really good amount. And we have our darker tones. So I'm going to move that color so that those distinctive dots will kind of lose their form and make this look a little bit more smooth. I have the contours of the apple here, and it looks like I did not get it exactly on that same edge. I got it a little bit off, which is okay because we're doing this watercolor process, and that's going to be a big assist. Now, while I have everything here, I'm going to add those yellow highlights that I mentioned before. So we're starting to get it to look more like an apple, and I've gotten this So Saffron. I'm going to make sure that it's diluted. And where some of those light areas are, just pick a spot and add a little bit of yellow. And so it's going to add those yellow tones in. And I'm dabbing off my brush because every time I touch the watercolor paper, it's mixing in with the red. And then what's left on my paintbrush is a different color than my stamp pad. So adding those yellow tones really, it brings it up nicely. So all week I will be featuring different techniques on my YouTube channel and on my blog. I'm going to have more videos than I typically do. I typically have the 4 videos per week, but this week I'm going to have many more because this is a technique celebration to try and share as many techniques as I can. And I'm using a lot of variety of Stampin' Up! Products, not just all new products. I'm going to be using some well-loved products as well. So now that I've cleaned this, I can add it back to the stamp sheet. And we can add our very last one, which is the stem of the apple. And it also has the V and the line. And I'm very appreciative that Stampin' Up! Added that because it really is a very big help. And this has also got that distinctive look to it. I'm just trying to line up and make sure that I get it lined up with the most bottom area that does not have any color. So that would be the little contour here of the stem. I think I've gotten it in a good enough place. And this is, because it's another distinctive, I'm going to muddle it up with the aqua painter too. I'm using the corner of my stamp pad to just get that one little bitty stamp here. There we go, isn't that nice? It's a very pretty stamp set. And because there was just a tiny little area that needed to have some color, and I'm using watercolor paper, then I could just move that color around. Again, if I were using regular standard Whisper White, I couldn't move those colors around. And now that I have this stamped, I'm going to fussy cut the image. Now that my image is fussy cut, I'm using a cherry cobbler Stampin' Right marker to go along the outside edge that was cut away so that there isn't any white area along the cut edge. And it just gives it a little bit of a polished look. So now I have a panel that is going to be featured on my card, and this is measuring 4 by 5 1/4. And I have this large floral spray image from Woodward's stamp set. So I'm going to work with apple colors, and this is Granny Apple Green. And what I'll do is I'll feature this going across the panel. I'm going to stamp off so that I'm using my 2nd generation of ink. And have that be very simple. That's going to give my apple a little bit of a background to sit on. Now I could actually bring it down a little further, but I kind of like the way that the apple looks with the Granny Apple Green. I think the sentiment would look really nice on black cardstock. So I want to use some Versamark clear sticky ink. And I'll be using the sentiment, I couldn't have picked a better friend. And use some white embossing powder. So the embossing buddy is going to help me get all the white powder back off. I'll ink this up. I'm going to leave a little bit of space on this side because this area will fit underneath the apple. So I'll choose to add my sentiment off a little bit. Got most of that embossing powder back off. You can see a little bit. And now I'll heat set this. I try to make sure that my heat tool is well heated before I bring it to the paper. So I've preheated it just a little bit off camera, and now I will see if we can get this melted. There we go. That's going to be a striking sentiment. I am adhering now this panel with some Stampin' Dimensionals. And I have the apple also with some dimensionals. And I'm using my fingers to kind of curve up the outside edge of the apple just a little bit, just enough for me to get where it's going to look like it has a little bit of actual physical dimension. And we can even kind of move it around this way. And the sentiment could actually go on either side. So I think I like it to the left. Because this paper piece is long enough, I could go all the way across and just have this feature here. But I think I want to have more white space in the project. So I'm going to cut away part of this black piece. I'll kind of measure it a little bit to see how far I'm going to bring it out. And then I'll cut a fishtail banner. On this end. And this can go directly onto the card base with some liquid glue or snail adhesive, whichever one works better for you. Okay, I think that's a nice spot. I want it to fit just right with my apple. Making sure that I get it straight as best as I can. But this is a very forgiving stamp set. Now that I can place my apple here, it looks like it's curved a little bit, very natural looking. A few of the adhesive-backed sequins placed in a couple of strategic locations will be just enough sparkle. I'm placing them where they're partially behind the apple, and add one by the sentiment as well. And for the inside of the card, I'm going to continue with that floral look and the Granny Apple Green ink to add up along the side. And that is from Wood Words. And we can adhere that to the inside of the card with some liquid glue. Thank you so much for joining me for this tutorial today. I hope that you'll check back throughout the week at my blog, jennyhalldesign.com, and you'll find lots of projects with techniques this week because it is Technique Week. I am coming up with some techniques that I have not used before and some fun new card designs. So thank you for joining me today. Be sure to check the video description down below this video, and it'll have all of the measurements and there will be product links for you to click and make your purchase. I thank you so much for your Stampin' Up! Purchase in my online store. I greatly appreciate you choosing me as your demonstrator. Here's another look at that pretty little apple. So thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Hi, my name is Trip. Thanks for watching the video. See you next time.